Football mascots, yes, I'm talking about these guys, have evolved a great deal over the years. I remember when I first started attending games with my dad, quite a lot of mascots down in what are now Leagues 1 and 2 would get pretty heavily involved. I'm talking about G'ing up the home crowd, antagonising opposition fans, occasionally even flicking the V's. I know some of you will think that I'm joking here, but I am genuinely not. I'm pretty sure that the bloke who used to play Rory the Tiger for a while whilst I was growing up, which is Hull City's mascot, even instigated 1 or 2 riots. For more than a decade, there was even an annual event called the Mascot Grand National, in which the fastest of roughly 100 British football and rugby team mascots to sprint 200 metres, leap over 6 hurdles and cross the finish line would be crowned as that year's champion. The last Mascot Grand National was held in 2013 and was won by the Barratt Homes safety mascot, at an event that was sponsored by Bet Victor. Barratt Homes aren't a football or rugby team though, are they? They are housing developers, listed on the FTSE 100. A mascot was originally a personal thing that was supposed to bring good luck, though the definition has been broadened in recent years to include almost anything that is used to represent a group or organisation. Barratt Homes winning a Mascot Grand National might seem ridiculous, but mascots, like everything in football, have become increasingly commercialised in recent years. Just take West Brom's Boiler Man in association with Idle Standard, which is quite literally a man dressed up as a combi boiler. In light of the recent energy price hikes in the UK, that almost seems like taunting West Brom fans. I must admit, I had also assumed that Wigan Athletic must have some partnership with Greggs or Couplands when I saw their new mascot in 2019, but it turns out that it's just because the people of Wigan bloody love pies, which is quite wholesome. Just kidding, it was a partnership with a wholesale bakery, but Wigan natives do indeed love pies. Anyhow, rambling mascot-related introduction done and dusted, in today's video, I'm going to take a quick look at every Premier League mascot and provide a bit of an explanation as to why they are each team's mascot. Naturally, some are more obvious than others, and in some cases it may require an explanation as to how the team acquired their nicknames as well. But here we go. Arsenal. Gunnersaurus. We get started, going in alphabetical order, with one of the strangest mascots in the Premier League. Arsenal's nickname is the Gunners because the club, originally named Dial Square Football Club, was founded by workers from the local armaments and ammunition manufacturers, Royal Arsenal. A cannon isn't an ideally shaped costume for a human to inhabit though, and unlike most mascots, weapons are inanimate objects. To quote Goldie Looking Chain on this one though, guns don't kill people, dinosaurs do. The reason why Arsenal's mascot is a dinosaur, known as Gunnersaurus, full name Gunnersaurus Rex, is because an 11-year-old boy named Peter Lavelle said that it should be in 1993. No, seriously. Arsenal ran a competition during the 1993-94 campaign asking young Gunners fans for their suggestions for a new mascot, and young Peter sent in this. Peter is now 40 years old, and a few years back, Gunnersaurus even attended his wedding. Of course, Arsenal famously made Gunnersaurus redundant during the COVID-19 pandemic, prompting Mesut Ozil to offer to pay the actor who plays Gunnersaurus' wages. But he is back in business now, looking just as bizarre and unrelated to anything that is to do with Arsenal as he did when Peter Lavelle designed him almost 30 years ago. Aston Villa. Hercules the Lion and Bella the Lioness. Hercules the Lion and Bella the Lioness, as their names suggest, are both lions. There is a very prominent lion at the heart of Aston Villa's club badge, and the Lions is one of 3 nicknames associated with the Birmingham club, along with the Villains and the Claret and Blue Army. Villa have their early era Scottish contingent to thank for their association with an animal that is commonly, albeit incorrectly, referred to as being the king of the jungle. Scots George Ramsay and William McGregor introduced the lion to Villa's imagery in the late 1870s, with the lion, of course, being indigenous to central Scotland. That's why Villa's mascots, Hercules and Bella, are lions, and Hercules, as you can see here, even very thoughtfully wore a face shield at the height of the pandemic. Personally, I think that everyone should have had to have worn an entire lion head mask thing, and then either a mask or face shield on top, rather than just a mask, throughout the entire course of the pandemic. But sadly, I'm not in charge of making these kinds of decisions. Brentford. Buzz and Bazat. Among the least inventively named mascots in all the world, Brentford's two mascots, Buzz and Bazat, as you can probably guess, are both bees. I am in no position to judge, given that my two teddies growing up were a bunny and a white lion, which I named Bunny and White Lion, but then again, the person at Brentford who chose the nicknames Buzz and Bazat probably isn't 6 years old. Out of interest, what do you think the relationship between the mascots at clubs where they appear to have male and female gendered mascots is supposed to be? Close friends? Lovers? Siblings? I suspect it is a platonic bond, but, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. More to the point, Brentford's mascots are both bees, unsurprisingly, given that the club is nicknamed the Bees. That nickname came about rather unusually after, in the 1890s, when Brentford were still in their infancy as a club, two students of the local Borough Road College went to a Brentford game. They attended in support of their fellow student and Brentford player Joseph Gettins, but when they chanted "Buck up Bees," which was the Borough Road College chant, a journalist misheard it as "Buck up Bees," like the winged insects, rather than the letter, as it was spelt, in the college chant. Brentford have been the Bees ever since, and Buzz and Bazat seem very happy with one another, whatever their relationship status. I was going to make a joke about there being a real buzz around the Brentford Community Stadium during Brentford's first season back in English football's top flight, but I decided that I'd rather submerge my head in a vat of boiling hot acid. Brighton and Hove Albion. Gully. Brighton have three mascots in actual fact: Gully, Sally and Sammy. God knows what the relationship between these three is or what they get up to after hours, but Gully is very much the Rudolph of the clan. And by that I mean, when you think of Brighton's mascots, you think of Gully. And don't even pretend that you don't. If any of you tell me that you think of Sally or Sammy, I will never be able to trust you again. All three of Brighton's mascots are seagulls by virtue of the club's nickname, and legend has it that the Seagulls replaced Brighton's old nickname of Albion in 1975 as a response to Brighton's rivals Crystal Palace chanting "Eagles, Eagles" against them, and Brighton fans spontaneously responding with a chant of "Seagulls, Seagulls" before the nickname caught on. Of course, there is no species of bird that is officially known as a seagull, there are just gulls, and therefore Gully, by virtue of only being one letter out, is closer to the actual name of what is often wrongly referred to as being a seagull than the word seagull itself. HITC Sevens, a place for laughter, but also for learning. Burnley. Bertie B. There's an awful lot going on in the Burnley badge, which I think is among the best in the Premier League. Whilst Burnley are nicknamed the Clarets, due to their primary colour, if you take a look at the club's crest, you will find four creatures: a lion, a goose, and two bees. The bees in Burnley's badge provide the inspiration for their mascot, Bertie B, who is the second bee-based mascot to feature even at this early stage. The bee in the Burnley badge is to symbolise the busyness of Burnley town centre, as in the phrase "busy as a bee." In 2013, Bertie was sent off in a championship game against Queen's Park Rangers after he offered a linesman his glasses following a controversial decision, leading the Football League to issue Burnley with a warning. That is the type of old-school mascot antics that I was talking about in the introduction, which has sadly now been sanitised from the game. I bet Bertie is a right old boring bee these days. Chelsea. Stamford the Lion and Bridget the Lioness. You can sense a bit of a theme developing here in terms of popular Premier League mascots, as Lions join bees with two inclusions at this early stage. Chelsea haven't always been associated with the Lions. Originally, the West Londoners were nicknamed the Pensioners, and the club's crest from 1905 to 1952 reflected that fact. The pensioner was axed in the 1950s, ironically enough, because Ted Drake wanted to modernise the club. That is when the rampant lion was introduced, holding his trademark staff, and that's why Stamford and Bridget are the club's mascots now. When Chelsea first introduced their lion mascot in 1971, they used a real lion, but Reggie, as he was known, had to be scrapped and put down after Chelsea's first game of the 1971-72 season, in which he mauled 3 people, including a small child, and a member of Chelsea's coaching team. Chelsea replaced Reggie with humans in costumes, like most other teams. Not really. I just made that up. The bit about Reggie, that is. The rest of it is true. Crystal Palace. Pete and Alice the Eagles. Crystal Palace's most famous mascot was, of course, Kayla the Eagle, who was a real eagle and featured on the album cover of Only by the Night by the Kings of Leon. Kayla served as Crystal Palace's mascot for 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, when she died of a heart attack, aged 28. And no, this isn't a bit like the Chelsea joke, this is all true, so RIP Kayla, even if you did look absolutely terrifying. Pete and Alice, as you can probably tell if you are as familiar with birds of prey as I am, are not real eagles, but are in fact humans inside of eagle costumes. The first clue, for me at least, was their terrific size, far larger than an ordinary eagle. There is also the face, as most eagles don't have foot-long beaks or eyes the size of frying pans. And finally, the dead giveaway, again, in case you are not an expert like me, is that Pete and Alice are wearing full Crystal Palace kits, and as anyone who has ever tried to put a Crystal Palace kit on an eagle will know all too well, they simply will not allow it. Anyhow, Palace's mascots are eagles because Crystal Palace are known as the Eagles, a nickname they adopted in 1973, as new boss Malcolm Allison looked to revolutionise the club from top to bottom. Allison is believed to have chosen an eagle, having been inspired by Benfica, who were among the strongest teams in Europe at the time. Everton. None. Everton are the only Premier League team without a mascot at this moment in time, at least as far as I can tell. Though I would, of course, be more than happy if someone were able to tell me otherwise in the comments. Everton have previously had mascots, including Mr. Toffee, based upon the club's nickname, Changy the Elephant, which came about due to the club's long-term sponsorship agreement with Chang Beer, and Mr. Testicles, who was a giant upside-down ball sack created with the intention of raising awareness around testicular cancer. Personally, I would like to see Everton combine all three ahead of next season and take the Premier League by storm with a giant testicled, toffee-munching elephant, though, and I must stress this point, I do not anticipate them actually doing that. The cowards. Leeds United. Lucas the Copcat. I have been to Ellen Road on many occasions, always as a visiting fan, and I must admit that I've either never seen Lucas the Copcat, or at least I've never registered having seen him. I must have been too distracted by all of the twirling scarves. Lucas the Copcat is very real though, and unlike a number of big cats in the wild, his existence does not appear to be endangered at this moment in time. Lucas was, for a number of years, played by Kev Holroyd, better known as Kevo, who was once a familiar face on the Leeds music scene, and was among that cohort of rather more charismatic mascots that I mentioned in the introduction. During his time playing the role of Lucas, Kevo was allegedly the only mascot in the Championship who had an official club contract. Sadly, Kevo died in December 2019, but Lucas still lives on. Lucas is a snow leopard, chosen primarily due to his colours, which are the same as the club's, since the 1970s at least. The name Lucas was arrived at via a fan-led suggestion and vote process in 2005, when Lucas was first unveiled. Leicester City. Philbert Fox. As with a number of mascots in English football, Philbert Fox's introduction at Leicester City in 1992 coincided with the breakaway of the Premier League from the Football League, despite the fact that Leicester weren't actually a top-flight team at the time. Leicester City played their home games at Filbert Street when Philbert Fox was introduced to supporters, hence his name. Leicester are obviously nicknamed the Foxes, and the county of Leicestershire has long been associated with the Red Fox. There is a high density of foxes in Leicestershire and in Leicester, even in urban areas, and the region is associated with some of the world's oldest and most famous fox hunts. Fox hunting, using dogs, was banned in the United Kingdom through the Hunting Act 2004, but the practice still goes on because, due to an interesting quirk in the UK legal system, laws don't actually apply to bloodthirsty, Land Rover driving posh men who are dressed in tweed. Liverpool Mighty Red. The first Premier League mascot to feature, who has his own verified Twitter account, and also the first that is a mythical creature, Liverpool mascot Mighty Red is a liverbird. The liverbird has long been a symbol of the city of Liverpool, visible at the top of the city's famous Liver building, and now synonymous with one of English football's most successful clubs. Imagery of the liverbird was actually used by Everton before it was adopted by Liverpool, but the Toffees dropped it in the 1930s and switched their symbolism to another Merseyside icon in the form of the Everton lockup, which can still be seen on their badge today. Liverpool were very late adopters to the Mascot game, with Mighty Red only being introduced in 2012. But despite his initially rather strange appearance, he, she, it or they has become a firm fan favourite. Manchester City, Moonchester and Moonbeam. It's always a struggle when your nickname and badge doesn't feature an animal to come up with a decent mascot. Arsenal decided to co-opt a random creature, and an extinct one no less, with no connection to the club. Meanwhile, Leeds United just went out and picked an animal that happened to share their colours. There is another route, though, only adopted by the very bravest of teams, which is to take whatever you've got and just to run with it. If you're ballsy enough to attempt it, then you might end up with a mascot that looks something like this. Manchester City fans have long sung the 1934 ballad Blue Moon, so that is why they took inspiration from the moon when designing their mascot. Moonchester and Moonbeam, it should be said, as you can probably tell from their eyes, mouth, ears, and remarkably human-like bodily form, are not supposed to be two moons, but rather they are apparently alien beings who presumably hail from a moon. Not the moon, obviously. We've been to our moon, and we know that there is no life form there. But one of the many other moons that we don't know much about, which are inhabited by Manchester City shirt-donning, blue lycra, giant-headed aliens advertising Etihad Airways. Manchester United. Fred the Red. I must admit, when I came up with this idea, I feared that it would be a bit rubbish. But I've really enjoyed it, so that's nice. There's something fantastically stupid about mascots that I love. As far as I can tell, Manchester United are the only Premier League team with an entire Wikipedia page dedicated to their mascots, which made my job very easy this time around. According to that wiki page, the Red Devils have had 6 different mascots over the years, ranging from a canary back when they played in green and gold kits, all the way to a man who was known as Jack Irons, who dressed up in a red and white dinner suit, holding a red and white umbrella and signing autographs before games kicked off. It is still unknown how or why Jack came to have that job, but he was laid off following the rise of hooliganism and supporters becoming more interested in hitting each other than getting autographs off some bloke named Jack dressed in a dinner suit. Fred the Red has been the Manchester United mascot roughly since the beginning of the Premier League era, and naturally, he is a Red Devil due to the club's nickname. Interestingly, the Red Devils nickname hails from the Salford rugby team being given that name whilst wearing red shirts on tour in France. When they returned, later being officially renamed Salford Red Devils, Manchester United manager Matt Busby liked the name, so he decided to co-opt it as Manchester United's own. Newcastle United. Monty Magpie. There isn't a great deal to say about this one, other than that Newcastle United are nicknamed the Magpies due to the fact that they play in black and white, and that is why their mascot Monty is a magpie. Newcastle haven't always played in black and white though, it must be said. The club's original kits were either red and black or red and white. What's more, unlike most teams whose nickname and mascot is an animal, you won't find a magpie anywhere on the Newcastle United badge. Instead, you will find 2 seahorses, symbolising Newcastle's seafaring tradition, along with a small demi-lion sitting atop the city's historic castle keep, since the Newcastle United badge is very heavily influenced by Newcastle upon Tyne's own coat of arms. Norwich City. Captain Canary. Manchester United's first mascot was a canary, due to the club's colours, and since Norwich City still play in green and yellow, their long-held association with the Finch family bird should come as no surprise. Unlike a lot of teams, however, Norwich City's nickname didn't come about as a consequence of their colours, but rather, they were nicknamed the Canaries first, due to the city's history of breeding canaries, and the kit colours followed. Captain Canary, is over 6 foot tall, which makes him roughly 20 times the size of an average Atlantic canary. And whilst that is undoubtedly a fascinating fact, my advice would be not to open with it as a bit of trivia on a first date. Southampton, Sammy Saint and Mary Saint. Another fairly straightforward one, Southampton have been nicknamed the Saints since their inception, since the club was founded in 1885 as a church football team. That church was called St Mary's, hence the name of Southampton Stadium, and when the club was first founded, they were actually named St Mary's Church of England Young Men's Association. It wasn't the catchiest name, if truth be told, so in 1887 they renamed themselves St Mary's FC, followed by Southampton St Mary's in 1894, and finally Southampton FC, their current name, in 1897. Southampton might not have the word Saint in their name anymore, but they are still nicknamed the Saints, and both Sammy and Mary Saint, along with the halo on the Southampton badge, keep that tradition alive. Sammy and Mary are both portrayed as being dogs because, as we all know, dogs are saints, and personally, I think it would be a lot more fun if all saints, whether that be the Archangel Michael or Saint Monica, were portrayed as having been dogs from now on. Tottenham Hotspur, Chirpy. 5 Premier League mascots are birds, by my count, yet not one of them can fly, which, I think you will agree, is a great disappointment. Disappointment is an emotion that is all too familiar to Tottenham Hotspur fans, but at least in their darkest hours, when they think of all those classic Spursy moments, they can go to their happy place and picture Chirpy, with his, or her, enormous terrifying face looking straight through them. Not all Chirpies have been terrifying in fairness. The Tottenham mascot has been remodelled and reimagined on a number of occasions, presumably as they tried to make his, or again, her facial expressions, accurately portray how Tottenham fans felt about their team at that particular time. Chirpy, I can only assume, is supposed to be a cockerel, though he or she and she, look absolutely nothing like any cockerel that I've ever seen. The cockerel has been a part of Tottenham's identity since 1909, when former player William James Scott made a bronze cast of a cockerel standing on a football which was then placed at the top of the old West Stand at White Hart Lane, and was incorporated into the Tottenham Hotspur badge from 1921 onwards. Watford, Harry the Hornet. Perhaps the most relevant and significant Premier League mascot in the context of this season, Harry the Hornet, was once labelled as being, quote, a disgrace by then Crystal Palace manager Roy Hodgson after the Watford mascot mocked Wilfred Zaha for allegedly diving. Hodgson, who is still going strong at the age of 74, was recently appointed as the new Watford boss, and it remains to be seen whether they have been able to build bridges since the former England manager arrived at Vicarage Road. Watford's mascot Harry is a hornet because Watford are nicknamed the Hornets, a nickname which heralds from the club's home colours, resembling the colours of a hornet. Of course, as you all know, most species of hornet are actually coloured yellow and chestnut brown, rather than yellow and black, like wasps, and therefore Watford should either change their colours to chestnut brown and yellow, or their nickname and mascot to a wasp. I don't make the rules. Neither a hornet nor a wasp has appeared in the Watford badge, at least since 1978, with their post-78 badges, all featuring what is commonly mistaken for a moose, but is actually supposed to be a hart, which is a male deer. The reason that people often think that the hart in the Watford badge is a moose is because it looks nothing like a hart and very much like a moose. West Ham United, Hammerhead. West Ham have gone down the Manchester City route of totally disregarding the fact that a hammer isn't a living thing, sticking 2 fingers up to ecologists everywhere, and deciding that Hammerhead is a perfectly legitimate mascot. Introduced in 2011, following a whole host of less celebrated mascots, Hammerhead has been taken into the hearts of many West Ham fans, despite being, obviously, absolutely ridiculous in every way imaginable. According to West Ham, the legend of Hammerhead was actually created decades ago, when a lightning bolt hit Thames Ironworks, giving birth to a mighty warrior of iron, which they've termed Hammerhead. A mighty warrior of iron is one thing, but most West Ham fans that I know would just have liked a couple of January reinforcements to keep them in a top 6 battle and to stop them losing Jared Bowen and Declan Rice in the summer. Alas, they did not get their wish, but at least they still have Hammerhead. Wolverhampton Wanderers. Wolfie and Wendy Wolf. Alright, hold on Wolverhampton Wanderers. Do not think that we're just about to let that one slide. I gave Buzz and Bazat the benefit of the doubt based upon my own unimaginative teddy bear naming past, but Wolfie and Wendy Wolf. I think that's a step too far even for me. Wolverhampton Wanderers have probably the easiest mascot choice in English football, given the fact that almost no one actually calls them Wolverhampton Wanderers, referring to the club only as Wolves. The city of Wolverhampton being referred to as Wolves predates the football club, which was founded in 1877, though it is unclear why or how that nickname for the city first came about, other than the similarities in terms of the words. Nonetheless, it made it very easy for the club to eventually adopt the colours black and gold, which also comes from Wolverhampton's City Council motto of "Out of the darkness cometh light," and to become known as Wolves. Wolves have one of the most distinctive badges in English football, though the wolf's head was only actually added to the club's crest in 1979. So that is it for today's bloody brilliant video. It was a bit daft, but as troops gather on the Russian border with Ukraine, people's living standards rapidly deteriorate whilst oil and gas companies enjoy record profits, and everything just generally keeps on getting worse, maybe we all need a stupid HITC Sevens video about Premier League mascots. I can't think of many better ways to spend humanity's final days. Thank you all very much for choosing HITC Sevens as your late-stage human life entertainment form. I hope that you all enjoyed today's video. Hit the like button if that was the case. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on before we all die for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on social media, on Twitter or Instagram, via the username @HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.